finally pulling our finger out and we are looking through the Shopify Plus, the Future of E-Commerce Report 2021. We're sitting and recording on the 26th of February. In reality, they brought this out at the start of the year, but there's some really interesting points in here, isn't there? And I think we're going to go through it week by week and pick through the trends that they've outlined in this report. And just to give everyone the summary, really, I mean, if you don't know about the lockdown, I mean, where the fuck have you been, quite frankly? But the very first page of this, just to read it word for word, is the pandemic has left an enduring mark on the consumer landscape. Years of change have happened within weeks. Offline spending has shifted online. Products rarely bought online are now e-commerce staples, and immediacy, convenience, and speed are the top consumer demands. And to use everyone's favorite phrase, this is the new normal.
Oh God, I hate that.
I mean, Joe, we'll come to you first. I mean, just at a top level, what do you think's going on here? What did you think of the report? What do brands need to care about as a result?
I thought it was like really insightful getting that data from like global reports and things like that. There's a lot of insights to take from it. Definitely conversations to be had with like my clients and things like that. Yeah. It's stuff. It's there's things in there that I've thought, but I've just not been able to get across to the client, and not being able to back it up, knowing you just have like a bit of a hunch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to that a lot of those things are actually in there, and it's not just me making things up. But yeah, obviously it's like there's so much to it, isn't there?
Loads
different aspects of e-commerce, stuff like that. We're going to go through one each week. But
so trend one, e-commerce boom fuels record online competition. And for me, the standout quote was about, it's the research from McKinsey. So as you say, proper full-on firm. It's not like just us three talking bollocks as we do normally. 10 years growth has occurred within 3 months. It's based on US e-commerce penetration. Jeff, talk to us about what's going on there.
Everyone knows, like, people are starting to buy more stuff online.
Yeah.
But it's that thing of being forced into it. My mum, where she's an ardent in-store shopper for her grocery shopping on a weekend, couldn't get in the shops, or didn't want to get in the shops. Supermarkets are awful at the minute. Moved to purchasing online, so the world has seen more online spend than ever. And the point about going back to the new normal, there is no new normal. People will continue to buy online. The one thing I've taken away from the whole thing is the customer experience is imperative. So when you've got a choice of dozens of different retailers, there's price considerations, for sure, but can you make the experience as good as it possibly can be? And personally, a lot of it boils down to just convenience. I think Amazon is always going to trump everybody, just because you can go on there and you can click, and you there's that consistency there where a little brown box will show up on your door within a day or two, and it's pretty hard to beat.
If you're the fastest product from order to delivery, that's one of the best experiences you can get, surely.
That's the when we break apart customer experience, and marketers are guilty of this, when you can overanalyze a headline or call to action or something to the nth degree. The customer experience is sometimes I just want to buy something and then get it as soon as is humanly possible, and for there to be no interruptions or no obstacles within that. And to be fair to Amazon, they do a fantastic job of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll get into customer experience and how you do a better one, because that's there's how many things that to speak about there. But I thought this was quite interesting, because obviously we're involved in e-commerce all the time, but the stat was that e-commerce reached an all-time high of 16.4% of total global retail sales. Now, does that not strike you as quite low in terms of what's going on? I thought, hang on, how is it only 16%?
I thought so, but we're digital marketers. We buy things online. That's what we do. That's the world we live in. But there's still a big offline world out there, obviously.
Yeah, we're guilty in the West of not being empathetic for the rest of the world, aren't we? And what happens outside of our bubble, we don't particularly care about. But I feel like I make most of my purchases online these days. You two must feel the same.
Yeah, well, buying a car online.
I was about to say, buying cars online. The majority of what your retail spending will be spent on is like the essentials, like day-to-day things anyway. So with essential stores still being open in the UK and I assume around the world, like I think the bulk of what you're spending will be spent on like groceries and things like that.
Yeah.
Like how often do you buy a pair of trainers? Like a few times a year. You don't buy one every month, do you?
Yeah.
So I mean, that would probably account for a vast majority of people's expenditure. So
yeah.
I think that would probably explain away why it's only 16.4% online. Even though there's obviously a big shift towards sort of home deliveries and things like that. I think you look at your standard person's outgoings. What are they spending it on? Are they spending it on fashion, apparel, jewelry, accessories, things like that, or are they spending it on groceries and those types of like day-to-day stuff? So I think maybe that might explain that one.
They've spent it on all kinds of things, especially when the lockdown started. I mean, you think of like your home gym kind of sector that exploded. I think, was there not a stat around the Nintendo Switch? Because obviously a lot of people went on furlough. A lot of people had a mortgage holiday. So they had suddenly had a lot more disposable income than they would have had normally. And they weren't allowed to go outside. So they needed to do something inside. Like everyone started doing up the houses as well.
It was the specific game Animal Crossing, which is like virtually doing up your house. Fantastic time waster. And it's I can't live my real life out there, but just I'll play a Nintendo game and sink my hours into that. But when you're talking about the growth, I think where that's probably come from is it's the things that people weren't previously buying online. They are now forced to buy online.
Yeah.
So it's now a convenience to buy your groceries online. You think about buying the kids like crafting stuff to do at home, where that money wasn't previously being spent online, and now it is. All of the the restaurant kits that you get at home, that money was going to offline business, is now being transacted online.
Let's cast
the exciting bit about it, I think, is that if we're at 18%, there's still another 82% to have.
That's what I was going to say. How does this extend out into the future from now? Then what habits stick? What do people go back to the shops for? What do you foresee?
I don't know what the natural the natural endpoint will be. Will it be 50-50?
I think it'll have to be some sort of. Well, we've long talked about the death of the high street and things like that, but the retail experience itself is going to have to be so much better. Like, if I'm going to go out to the shops and get dressed and look presentable and have a shower for the sake of going to buy something, there's got to be something else around it, another attraction.
Depends on demographics as well, doesn't it? Like, your older people are going to want to still have that face-to-face contact, getting out and going into town centres and things like that, whereas younger people will be, they've grew up sort of buying things online, like it's just normal for them. So I think there'll be a bit of a divide between like the generations, I think. And then again, it's the, like you say, it's the services that you can get online that you in store that you can't get online. Obviously, you can't really try something on online. There's virtual reality and augmented reality and things like that to try and get that, but it's not quite the same, is it? So there's furniture shopping and things like that. You want to sit on a sofa before you buy it. You want to lie on a mattress before you buy it. There's always going to be that place for those types of things. Jewelry, you're going to want to feel it. You're going to want to try it on, all that stuff. People are still buying online at the minute, but I think it will stick in store.
Okay. Are you going to want to test drive a car before you drive it, Jeff?
No, so I'd play the other side of that. So I'd say, you're going to see like the big brands survive on the high street. We're already seeing this. High streets are so copycat in nature. It's all of the big guys that can afford to be there. They will give you the hands-on experience, or come and lie on our mattress.
Yeah.
And, you know, it might be the online brands even, like Eve and Emma and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
who can afford to offer that experience. But then you'll still find that people will go there and lie on the mattress and then not make the purchase at that point and go home and continue to do their research and, you know, where can I buy a cheaper Emma mattress or whatever it is online. So you've got the experiential bits being offline, but then I think customers will still probably prefer to do
More
their
choice
online
online.
research and have a bit of a dig around and snoop around and shop on price. And it's the job of the offline bit is to try and make the experience so good that the customer has to buy there and then.
Mm-hmm. Like you've almost got to guilt them into it, or have a
Still
hell of an
guilty
offer.
element, isn't there? There's still a feeling of guilt where, you know, you go into, who's a good example? Someone like an HMV, where you know it's a dying brand. HMV's gone already, isn't it, actually? You'd go in HMV and it's dying throws, and you'd look at the stuff, and, you know, even if it's like a speaker or an MP3 player or something like that, you're not going to buy it there. You're gonna Google it in the shop and have a look and say, oh, well, actually, I can get this cheaper on Amazon, so I'll just do that.
Yeah.
Of course you are. No, it's fascinating. It's with everything happening and, you know, the increased competition of online as well, I thought was a really interesting part of this report. So if we read it, it reads, ad costs spike due to record online competition. And this is part of the situation as well. Given that it's so easy for Tom, Dick or Harry on the street to go and start a little online business and start transacting and sending stuff through the post, what we've seen is that ad costs are going up. And Joe, I'll come to you for this. What have you seen over the last 12 months in terms of Google Ads auctions and things like that?
Yeah. Initially, there was a bit of a drop, I found, where people just panicked a little bit, cut their ad spend, stopped, you know, reduced all the budgets, things like that.
Yeah.
And then I think what happened was those that just held the nerve and actually didn't decrease the budgets or increase them a little bit, saw great success. And then off the back of that, everyone else thought, oh, well, we're missing out here. Everyone's actually doing quite well off it. They're not seeing sales tumble and things like that. So yeah, there was a bit of an initial decline, I'd say, in competition to begin with, and then it just skyrocketed throughout. Like you say, it's so easy to set up an online store, set up a Google Ads account, especially with like smart campaigns and things nowadays. Doesn't take too long at all, too much effort. I used to have a client before who actually he sold screens, like Perspex screens and things like that, for offices once offices and shops and things like that started to reopen. And he literally had a 9-to-5 job, and he just bought a load of screens, set up a Shopify website, and then contacted the company to say, oh, I want to run some Google Ads.
Fair play.
So he set up a new business, and he was like turning over like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds per month at the peak. It was just so easy to jump on it. And then there was probably, that was just one experience for me. That there's probably, you know, hundreds of thousands of other people doing that as well.
What a time to be selling Perspex screens.
I know. Well, I think he just saw the gap in the demand in the market for it and set it up. I don't think he was doing it beforehand. But yeah, over time, he did start to see that increased competition, especially as maybe, like say, your big high street brands weren't necessarily having much of an online presence, and they probably felt the hit a bit more, felt the hit the most, and maybe shifted their focus towards online as well. So yeah, that certainly had an effect. But yeah, I would say it definitely dropped off to begin with, and then you saw the big spike after about, say, April, May time.
Yeah, and how does it play out in the future? A cost per click's going to keep climbing, do you think? And a brand's going to have to start being a little bit more careful with their ad spend?
Yeah, definitely. Like you can't just keep throwing budget at it all the time. It just doesn't work like that. You still need to be savvy with your ad spend. You need to be optimizing and making sure everything's running as efficiently as possible and getting the most out of it. Yeah. And you need to know your margins, your on targets, overheads, things like that. And yeah, just ensuring that you're getting a good return from it. So you'll always have the right, if you've got the right strategy, you'll always have the right sort of niches to be able to exploit to get the best returns.
You got any words of advice on looking after your ad spend, Jeff? Things like cost per acquisition or cost per click?
Not really advice, but what I really want to see come out of the back of this is that the little guy, it's his chance to compete and that he's able to compete. So, if we've got a guy selling perspex screens online and he's found his niche and he can take advantage of, his time to shine and sell this stuff online. I hope it's not a case where, costs just like rise and spike and continue to snowball out of control, especially where it's driven by the big guys. So you get a Screwfix just comes along and says, well, we can throw £1 billion of marketing spend at it. Like, see you later, little guys. So I really hope that, the growth of online and e-commerce at the moment that we're seeing is the chance for the little guy to come in and make his USP shine and say, we can fight amongst the high street stores, which at the moment, that guy probably can't secure a space on Northumberland Street, but on Google, it's a fair game.
I think it's that for me, that's a strategic thing. That sort of stuff comes way before you think about your marketing method, whether that be Google ads, Facebook ads, SEO, billboards, TV, whatever it might be. If you are in a niche like perspex screens, can you solve an additional problem that your customers might have? Do your perspex screens need to have a little gap in the middle for you to do cash transactions through? Do they need a little holder for hand sanitizer on the side? Do you want to personalize them with graphics and logos? You need to go deeper with the customers, and that sort of consideration becomes way before. So as our message often is on this podcast, you've got to really, really understand your customers. What do they want? What problems do they have? And tailor your offering around that. And after that, if Google Ads is a great way to reach them, hey, we're in. And then they should talk to us at that point. But it's the strategic bit for me. Something I wanted to ask you about as well. In this report, they talk a lot about the increase in cross-border transactions and international competition as well. Jeff, do you want to touch on that one first? What's going on? What do we need to be wary of, especially in the UK as well? We've got Brexit to deal with as well, and that's kind of on top of everything that's going on. Suddenly, some of our retailers have got import problems as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's the obvious Brexit kind of challenge looming over everyone, tax regulations and stuff, which I still have got no idea how they work. But again, it's like it's the opportunity for the small guy, which Shopify plays in that really heavily, but it's a fantastic place to be and a fantastic time for those guys.
Yeah.
So if you're a big, big international business who might have really constrained supply chains or be really slow to move, slow to put in, the ability to advance new territories, the little guy in theory who's selling his perspex screens, he should be able to just tick the box in Shopify and say, let's go international, and I don't have to sell these screens in Borough and Newcastle anymore. I can sell them anywhere in the world. And that's what the growth of e-commerce that we've seen in the last year is all about for me. It's you might have a really, really small business, but the kind of the premise of the internet has always been there. I can start a business, and I can sell to anyone online. Yeah. But the reality of it for the past for the past 20 years maybe has been that unless you're an Amazon size or you've got that fulfillment behind you, that it's actually incredibly difficult. It's a reality now. You can set up a business, set up an online store for shop for 29 quid a month. And away you go. In theory, your products couldn't get in front of people in America, Canada, Japan, wherever you want.
Absolutely. I mean, well, it seems a lot of people are taking that on board, and Shopify data reveals that translation apps have spiked 3,300% during the pandemic. So, hey, Mr. Perspex Screen might well be selling to Lithuania and Poland and wherever else he wants, because if you've got customers there in that market will be craving your product and your offering, no reason why you can't these days.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a little note on there as well that says the dropshipping and currency conversion apps have also seen a significant increase. So it's just so easy to shift everything dynamically on the website to that person and make it feel a bit more sort of like personalised and targeted for them, I guess.
Interesting. So what's the takeaway? Should our clients be thinking a little bit more global then, do you think?
I don't know. I've had one that's had a bit of a sticking point with since Brexit, which was only going to bring positives. There were no negatives to it, but let's not get too political. They've seen like thousands and thousands of stock just returned back to them because the people on the other end aren't willing to pay the extra sort of tariffs and duty and all that on top. So it is a bit of a sticking point, especially if you already were trading overseas within the EU. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? I can only speak from experience, really, dealing with my clients where they've had difficulties. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, people who are trading in like the US and things like that, there's no extra restrictions being added on. So it's just sort of business as usual for those types of territories. And I guess new guys coming into it have done the research and things like that. It's just something that they can then account for. Whereas if you're used to trading with the EU without any friction whatsoever, it's a bit of a stumbling block.
I know it's a theme we're going to come back to time and time again in 2021, but there's this tagline of like, it's never been easier to start an online store and potentially reach the world. Just because it's easy to kind of take that first step. Steps 2 to 10 to 100 are actually not that straightforward. But if you can get past the limitations and the challenges of Brexit, it literally is a case of the world is your oyster.
It's never been easier to start an online business, but because of that, it's never been harder to grow one. Yeah, I think we'll leave that one there. I mean, the other bit is about customer experience for this first section of the report. And what a challenge that is just within itself. But I'll ask you this, the report talks a lot about omnichannel. But in my view, and I might be playing devil's advocate a little bit here, but I think, if you own a store and you maybe a one-man band or you've got a couple of members of staff, I'd rather see you absolutely nail one channel versus spread yourself too thinly and do a lot of channels kind of 50% as well as you could. So I think this omni-channel message needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, just like, fair enough, you're going to stand in better stead if you can spread yourself across all the channels and your brand's equally as consistent across them all, and you're saying the same things and you're showing up in different areas and there's more touch points with your customers. All these different reasons why omni-channel is wonderful. However, it's got to be matched with your resource.
It's a challenge we see time and time again, isn't it? You see, the guy with the Perspex screens, he sets up a business, he thinks, well, hey, we're making some money here. So he starts dipping into Facebook ads and trying to reach people that way. He's still a one-man band and he's just figuring it out. His ads start performing not so great because he hasn't got the time and the creative to put towards them. So he says, well, we'll give YouTube ads a bash, and starts creating videos of his screens, and he doesn't quite commit fully to either of the channels he's using. Whereas if he really nailed his the first channel he was looking at and the one that's been successful for him, and then slowly branched out, perhaps it's quite often we see MDs and sole traders where they just take it all on, and then as you said, they spread themselves far too thin. They've got some horrible Facebook posts because Christ, I need to post another thing on Facebook. Slow down and pay a bit more attention to each of your channels.
Yeah, definitely. That was his plan. Came in, set up a website. Right, I want to get Google Ads. It's the easiest and quickest way to reach our customers, our new customers. I don't think there's much longevity in his business, probably. Obviously, it's a very of the moment type business. And he's filled that gap in the market. And Google Ads was the best thing for him. If he'd have, like Jeff said, tried to plow a lot of time into trying to boost his organic or other channels.
Do you mean people aren't interested in Perspex screens on TikTok?
Yeah, exactly.
The Perspex screen challenge.
Just because there's an audience there doesn't mean it's yours. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's a great line.
Absolutely.
Know your audience, know where they are, know what they're looking for, know how to reach them. And he did it, and he saw the benefits for it.
Yeah. And the other way, if you think of it from the reverse, if you do spread yourself out too thin, you risk not giving yourself enough time or the effort to make one of these channels actually work. So Google might be great for you, but it might take you a few goes at actually getting the traction that you need on that particular marketing method. So don't spread yourselves too thinly is what I would say.
100%.
Right. We'll leave that one there, boys. That was good. Speak soon.